The most popular video on my channel by far is about my rack for live sound production. So I figured I'd make another video to give you an update on the changes I've made to that rack, what I've got going on inside, how it's all set up, put together, how it works, and maybe some changes I want to make in the future. Let's go get it. All right, let's take a walk over here into my messy lounge and my storage room. Some lights here, and we'll dig this bad boy out. All right, there it is. So I'm still rocking this Pro X rack. It's a 12 unit rack. It's been great. Put a little logo on the sides. Those have been holding up okay. All right, let's take these lids off. There we go. So I have a lot less in this rack than I used to. I used to have like a Furman power conditioner, I think up top. I had a split for my band because my band stuff used to live in this rack. Now we have our own rack, which is over there. We'll do a video about that coming up. I also used to have a different network tray. There was different stuff going on in here. Now this is a lot simpler. I could actually get a lot smaller rack and condense this stuff down quite a bit. But I still have the Studio Live 32R. I still have the DBX processor for my mains. This network rack is new. I'll show you around that. And this wireless mic system is also new to me. Let's open up the back so I can give you a look at what we got going on. Aha, what do we have here? Let's take a spin, get some light. What do we have here? We have a little access point. So, something that I mentioned in one of my past videos about this rack is that it's crucial that you get a good router, and if you can, get an external access point, which is what this is. This is gonna be much stronger and more reliable than the built-in antennas in one of those Nighthawk routers. I found that I've had dropouts and issues with those Nighthawk routers once I get audiences of 1 to 200 people and up, or depending on the room that I'm in, I have had dropouts. Ever since I put this in here, I haven't had a single issue. Ubiquiti makes some really good stuff. TP-Link makes these as well. This is just a very good, slim access point that has actual antennas. The little pucks work well. We have a Ubiquiti, I don't know the model number, but we have one of those Ubiquiti pucks in our band rack, and that works well too. So as you can see, I have this little sort of patch bay thing that it was extra, and I was able to kind of mount this to that. I had an idea of putting like an arm, like somewhat like a camera arm or something that came out, and like, you know, I could raise this up. Maybe I'll still do that. But this has been good. I can just kind of tuck the antennas in, the lid fits over it, and I haven't had any issues with this so far on the shows that I've done with it. So I've done maybe 3 or 4 shows with this, and I haven't had a single issue with network. I have my 2 power solutions hung back here. I always keep these in here because that way I can't forget them. And one of these is an Edison to PowerCon, and I can just take my ball bungee off here. And this goes to the distro in the front. I'll show you that. And then I have a PowerCon to PowerCon because I have a distro that I built, as you saw in one of my last videos, and I get power straight from that, locking power for this rack. So I have my 2 power options, and that is for this guy right down here. So I can get power in with either an Edison outlet or PowerCon, depending on what I have available. Because sometimes I'm not able to use my distro, so I have to use Edison power to get this rack powered up, so I have both. Okay, a couple of things that haven't changed since last time. I still have my drive lines, left, right, sub. I can also do a front fill off of a matrix off one of the outputs. That's super handy. I have a couple extra network cables for whatever reason in here, just in case. Everything, like always, is a work in progress, so the wiring isn't perfect, but I tried to keep it as clean as possible. So down here in the bottom, you see I have my power distro. Everything is plugged in. I have an IEC split that basically takes one Edison cable and splits it out into like 3 or 4 of these, so I don't have to have multiple IEC cables plugged into my distro. I have this little guy just for spare power for little crap like these little USB bricks, stuff like that. I just found one of these at Menards and threw it in there just for easy access. Plug a phone in, plug whatever in, just to have a couple more Edison outlets available. And then moving up here, I have the processor. It's kind of hard to see in there, but I have my left right out going to my DBX processor. That hasn't changed. And then my outputs come out of that processor, so that's pretty simple. All right, so let's check out this network rack that I put together. I wanted something to be slimlined and small, 1 unit. So what I did was I took a 1 unit network shelf, and I added a router that replaced the Nighthawk router that's now in my band rack. And then I needed a few more ports, so I eventually added this little switch on top. What I could have probably gotten something a little bigger or better with more ports, but this is kind of the current situation. Like I said, everything's always a work in progress. I tried to keep all the wiring nice and neat. This is the power supply, the PoE power supply for our access point in the back there. Now this I'm not quite super proud of this little power situation. I used a tri-tap and this I made an Edison cable to go down to my distro, but I originally wanted this to be 1 unit so that I could put something right above it and fit everything in there. So I was trying to find a power strip solution where I can plug one of these bricks in for the router, and also the Edison for the access point power. And this is what I came up with. I put a little tri-tap, and I got this kind of ball bungeed so it doesn't come off. It's a little jank, but this is what I have come up with. If you guys have a suggestion on some sort of slim power strips, or maybe just a better way to do this, let me know. I'm trying to avoid having all of the Edison and all these cables, you know, running down to the bottom here to my distro or to another power strip. Maybe I just need to put a trip light in here up top or something like that where I can plug all this network stuff in. But so far, this is what I got going on. Everything's zip tied down and secure, and when the biggest problem that I've had is Edison and different things coming unplugged in transit. So this is ball bungeed. I think this was E-taped at one point, and this is all, you know, Velcroed and zip tied in place. And so far, it's all stayed nice and neat and tidy. So that's the network rack. The router has the access point plugged in. It has the mixer plugged in. It has an open slot for the network for my console when I go to plug my console snake in. I'll show you that in a bit. And it also has network going to the drive rack, to the processor, so that I'm able to make changes on my tablet to the system tuning if I want to do it through the processor. Now, 2 things that I haven't talked about on this rack are this cool little ArtNet device. This is for lighting. This is a DMX interface. They call it a node. I'm not a lighting guy, I'm an audio guy, so bear with me here. This is an ArtNet, Internet, Ethernet to DMX device. And what this does is it allows me to control my lights over my network. So I can be wireless to this rack from my laptop in DOS Lite, which is the program I use, and I can control my lights wirelessly. Now, I know this is potentially risky for dropouts and things like that, but I have found with the 3 shows that I've done so far, because my network is so stable because of this access point, I've had great success on doing my lights completely wirelessly and saving running a DMX cable from whatever the lights are on stage, the first light, to laptop or my little setup at front of house. So far, that's what I've been doing. I can always run a DMX cable as a backup if I need to. Maybe on bigger shows, I will be a little safer and run DMX, but for smaller shows and smaller rooms, so far these this network. I actually did a block party with this rack wirelessly, with the lighting being wireless, out on a street, outdoors, and the connection was perfectly stable the whole time, and I had zero issues with running my lighting wirelessly. So that was really cool. Okay, so the other thing on the rack is this little Bluetooth receiver. This is just so that when I'm doing shows with just this rack and I'm not bringing my console, I have the ability to connect my phone to this, and it has some RCA connectors that come out and go to a couple inputs on the mixer, and then I can play house music for my phone very easily via Bluetooth. I can also have someone else connect if I'm at a wedding or something like that. I can have whoever needs to play house music through this little guy. It's been pretty reliable. I would say the signal strength on most Bluetooth devices are generally not that great. This is better, but still, you know, you're not gonna be going 100, 200 feet away with this thing inside of a rack. But I've had pretty good luck with it. Last but not least in this rack is this Phoenix Pro mic, wireless mic system. And I actually bought this used at Guitar Center just to have a talkback mic in our band rack so that Kale, our audio guy, could talk to us in our ears. And we used it for our little tour. It worked great. It was just pre-set up. You know, he would just grab the mic out of the drawer and it was already hooked up to our mixer and routed to our ears. And that way he can tell us what he needs without having to talk to us and have us take our ears out to hear what he's saying and so on and so forth. So that was a really good solution that was super cheap, because I was about to spend, you know, $500-600 on like a Sennheiser Shure system or something like that or more. And this popped up used, and I'm like, you know what, it's just a talkback. I'm just gonna buy this cheap thing, and it's actually become really useful. I've used it many times live as well, and the mics don't sound that bad, surprisingly. So I've used it for a couple shows. Being able to provide people with wireless mics is really nice. It's nice to say yes finally when somebody asks, hey, do you have a wireless mic I could use? And again, they're not as good as maybe my V7s or, you know, maybe a Shure Sennheiser system, but I was pretty surprised on how good the mics sounded, and you can make them sound pretty decent. So for 150 bucks, I'm not complaining. So that's the update to my rack, but before we go, I'm gonna grab one thing real quick, and I wanna show you one more item that I have that goes with this rack, and I made it recently, and that's my front of house snake, because if you guys have been watching, I do have a PreSonus console, which is actually on my desk currently. I don't know why I'm pointing at this thing, but I have a console that I bring with me, and to get that console to talk to the stage box, you know that you need to have one of these Ethercon cables, and I have this spool down here, and it's a big pain in the ass too, because it's this stiff cable, and I'm too cheap to buy the really nice flexible stuff. But this is an Ethercon connection, which is just basically an Ethernet cable inside of a locking connector, and it's shielded and it's stiffer. But these PreSonus consoles, you don't need the shielded cable. Sometimes the Behringers or the Midas or other companies, you need the shielded cable, but in this case, it doesn't require it. You just need a network cable. So what I did was I made myself a little loom here, and this is only 100 feet long. The other one is 150 feet, and I've had to use all of it before. But what this is just a snake, basically a snake loom that has Edison power and two different network cables just taped together. And I just E-tape together. I do that with a lot of cable looms, things that I'm running together all the time. Super handy. And what this is giving me is Edison power for my console that plugs, you know, the other end plugs into my rack on stage. And again, this is for smaller rooms. 100 feet wouldn't get me that far in a big room, but for most of the smaller places and little outdoor block parties that I'm doing, or that I've done this year, this is perfect, plenty. 100 feet is plenty. So I use one of these for the audio stream, for the AVB stream, and the other one I use for my network stream. So one of these goes into the AVB port, the audio port on the console, and the other one goes into the control port on the console. And then on the other end, I'm plugging the audio port into the audio port on the stage box, and the network, the control port, gets linked to the switch here in my rack. So then when I connect my tablet, I can connect my tablet to this rack, to this one network, and I can see both this mixer or stage box, depending on what mode it's in, and my console at front of house with one network. Because what I had been doing is bringing a separate router with me that I put in the console case and in the doghouse. And then if I want to connect to this rack to look at my processor, I got to jump between networks. So in this case, I'm on one network and my console is just connected to this network instead of a little router at the console. I can still put a little router at the console if I want to, just in case. I keep a spare one in the console case that you saw in the other room. But that's what I've been doing lately, and it's one cable run that I make. It's not on a spool, because 100 feet really isn't that bad to coil up like this. And it's so much faster, so much less of a pain. I'm all about saving time, and this is a time saver. Also, if I'm in a bar or something and it's hard to find an outlet, you know, where I want to put the console, if I'm bringing the console, this gives me power right at the console, because the rack's gonna have power. I gotta have power for the rack, so it's easy to jump power from here to the console. So that about sums it up for the updated live sound rack. Again, let's run it through one more time. We got the power distro down here, which is basically just a fancy power strip, okay? We have the stage box, which is the PreSonus 32R. We have the processor for the PA, which is the DVX Drive Rack PA2. Then we have my network rack, which has my network, my access point power, which is back there. You know, the access point is a big Wi-Fi antenna. We have the ArtNet system for the lighting to make my lighting wireless and even easier to set up. We have the Bluetooth in the network rack as well for playback. And then up top, we got this little wireless mic unit. I got a ton of space. I can add more wireless if I want to set this thing up to do shows with better wireless. I can do that in the future. This rack is a lot bigger than it really needs to be now that I've taken all the band stuff out and put it in our other rack over there, which again, we'll do a video on coming up here. We'll maybe compare the two racks as well. And that is it. That is the current rack 2024. Been using it. It's been working great. If you guys have any questions or comments or ideas for me, or any ideas for yourself, and you need some answers, you need some insight, let me know down in the comments below. I always love changing and improving things and looking for better, more efficient ways of doing stuff, and hopefully this has been helpful. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.